394.
Episode 394. And let's take a listen to that can of coconut juice. That's going to sound good for the people. I'm drinking a can of coconut juice today, Ben.
Good for you.
Maybe later, Pop Rocks.
I bought some new fizzy water. I don't normally drink fizzy water, but I'm getting kind of more into it. And
what's the flavor? Let me know. You were going to tell me, and I interrupted you.
Welcome to the GudeLaurance podcast.
Yeah.
No, it's a Waterloo brand, I believe, and the flavor is cucumber melon.
Well,
and it is
cucumbers and melons are similar in taste.
Yeah. So, I mean, one could probably say that a honeydew melon is a cucumber that had made different life choices.
I used, speaking of cucumber sandwiches, I believe, were served at our wedding reception. I want to say, I could have been wrong.
Honestly, don't remember the food from, what was that?
Do you remember
18
who we
years
had
ago?
cater it though?
I remember it being in Theater off Jackson. I remember there being food. I don't remember exactly what food there was.
The crepe place.
Boucher.
Boucher, there we go.
Yeah.
It was Boucher catered. And hey, speaking about which, interesting story. I don't know if you remember this at all, but Theater off Jackson at one point in time was going to like build or clean out or something. They were going to have a reception area, like a banquet hall type thing. And when we booked our wedding there, that was the plan. And as it came time to the wedding, it turned out that was not happening anymore. And so our wedding was in the lobby.
Yeah. You're probably talking about, are you not talking about the space upstairs from Theater off Jackson?
I think maybe it was going to be, there was some deal that they were going to do where they were going to have more space, and that's where the reception was going to be.
Right.
And then, life got in the way and
so upstairs used to be, I believe, the Wing Luke Museum.
Yes, it was. That's right.
And then Wing Luke vacated, and I think the next thing that was in there was a social club called the Canoe Club. And it was called the Canoe Club because Wing Luke didn't want to remove this big-ass canoe from inside the building. It's still there to this day, by the way. When the Canoe Club moved out, then Theater off Jackson assumed like full ownership of that upstairs space.
Yeah,
and Awesome, the band Awesome, your friends and mine, recently did a concert up there, which I filmed.
Interestingly enough, I have been in that room before, but at the time that they were talking about it, and this is, again, we've talked about my strange mental landscape. I didn't think of that space when they were saying it. I had just imagined somehow that there would be an addition to their space. And it didn't strike me until just this moment of the space that they were talking about.
Strange mental landscape, the Paul Goody story.
The interesting thing is that when I brought that up today, it seemed to flow naturally, but really, and again, I don't talk about work here, but I used that as a metaphor today when somebody was like, we were talking about somebody is expecting one thing and then you go with the other thing, right? Like when Jennifer and I were looking for our wedding and Theater off Jackson had said, well, you could have the reception in our lobby, we would have said, well, no, we're not going to do that.
It's not a very big lobby.
However, when it was like, okay, well, we could either have the reception somewhere else after the regular ceremony, or we could have the reception in the lobby. The lobby became the choice that we had. And again, it's all about circumstance. You can always say, well, that's not gonna that if I had known X, then I never would have done this. But guess what? All of our lives are things that we wouldn't have known about.
Yeah. I'm surprised that more people didn't hang out on stage during the reception. I don't.
Yeah, I
I
know.
remember people
We it
only hanging out in the lobby, in the very tightly cramped lobby.
and we were not told by them that we couldn't hang out on stage. There were people that did
Yeah.
hang out on stage.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, sort of, Baldur's Gate 3, I'm playing right now.
Right.
The game. Well, not right now. Baldur's Gate 3, Ben. I'm like
Pay attention, Paul. Pay attention,
podcast.
Paul.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's not. Magic.
Hey.
And this is just for people who know Otis Sweezy. Magic. Someone
I get
thinks
that
that's really funny. Yeah.
Because I've heard that
so-
joke before.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine being told that joke while in a hot tub with a middle-aged man when you're in college.
All right, hang on. Let me go there. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, that guy. Oh, that's weird. He had facial hair like I have now.
Oh, the student has now become the master.
Exactly, that's right. Hey, okay, so here's the thing. There is a fight that is happening in the video game. Ben, you're familiar with video games. Do you play them?
No,
often?
I do. I'm not going to say I don't play video games. I have in the past. I would not consider myself a gamer.
Are you familiar with the concept of a cutscene?
Yes.
So there is a cutscene that would be triggered after I win this fight.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I have bypassed the cutscene before it. So normally what happens, spoilers for Baldur's Gate 3, this guy is trapped, you save the guy from being trapped, and then he kills some people and says, "You fools," and you realize, hey, this dude, pretty evil. And then he's gonna kill innocent people, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to stop him from killing innocent people. Now, because I know he's going to do this, what I did was I just showed up, and as soon as he was free, I started fighting him and killed him. I got the drop on him. But when you do that, you don't get the cutscene or anything else of, oh, you saved us from this guy. They just all stand around.
You suddenly just murdered this dude, but for no reason.
Exactly. And so I have to play it legitimately, but I'm not at the level that I need to be in order to beat this guy and the people that are with him.
Yeah.
And so what I've been doing is I've just been playing this scene over and over and over again and changing my character around, putting new points over here, putting new points over there, trying to figure out a way to actually stop this guy. And that's what my game has become. Isn't the way that it was supposed to be played, but I'm having fun. So really, it's
well,
not a
I
big
mean,
deal.
and that's ultimately the biggest goal, right?
Right, exactly. But my wife, Jennifer Pratt, who you know from the podcast, and also real life, I don't know if we need to bring this up, but we could mention it. At one point in time, Ben and my wife actually had co-ownership of me and what I was supposed to be doing. Like not really my parents, but sort of. And they had a conversation about me and Spin the Bottle and who was going to make sure that I made it to Spin the Bottle. This is prior between me getting my my driver's license, because at one point in time there weren't any buses and stuff. And I don't know if you remember this, Ben, but it was very much a picking someone up from soccer practice or whatever. It was kind of a, not that neither of you wanted to do it, but just that she she made it abundantly clear that I was responsible for getting to spin the bottle, and I couldn't just say, "Well, you have to take it."
Good save. Anyway, Jennifer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jennifer says, "What about
was
the
it
game?"
a good save? It probably wasn't. But you saw the little wheels turning there. So hey, what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
No, you mentioned Jennifer
Oh,
in relation
no.
to the game.
The reason I mentioned is that she's playing Red Dead Redemption now.
It's an older
And
game.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
RDR.
Sorry, Red Dead Redemption 2.
RDR2.
And it looks good on the new TV. So that's good.
Oh, right.
The OLED. Did I tell you about that? Yeah, that we got the
Yeah, we
OLED.
talked about the OLED. Actually, that since the TV's brought up, that reminds me that you were in just outside of Chicago last weekend.
I was, and now it's time to play. Ask me about Chicago, because I can't really think of that much to say about. Okay, I'll tell you what. I took the train down to Chicago, or up to Chicago.
So you took the train from
up on the
Edwardsville to Chicago, and then another a bus from Chicago to
from Alton, Illinois to Chicago.
From Alton.
Yeah, Jennifer drove me to Alton. We only have one car, and she volunteered to do it. So it's still getting rides from people. It's still something I think about, even though
part of daily life.
I hate driving, Ben. It's hard for me. It's more difficult for me than I think it is for many other people.
Well, I enjoy driving, and I am annoyed when my car does not work. My check engine light came on a couple days ago.
Oh no!
Which irritates me to no end, because just a couple months ago I spent a lot of money on repairs, and so it's unfortunate that that car issues are still occupying brain space in my head.
So this is actually, yeah, and oh, sorry, yeah.
I was going to continue on the Chicago theme, but
yeah, that's where I'm going to.
Okay.
Have you taken a train recently, like within the last 10 or 15 years?
I have. I was actually in Buffalo, and I took the train to New York City. It's an Amtrak.
So,
and then
you have experienced the same thing that I have. It's not that trains are less. Going on a train versus going on an airplane is like going to a local movie theater versus a big chain in a big city, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There aren't assigned seats in the trains.
Correct.
Unless you have a sleeper car. If you're a coach, you're just in there. You really are kind of on your own of making sure that you're on the train on time. There are announcements, but you get there, you have your ticket, you're like, do I need to do anything? Boarding pass? They're like, no.
There's no security like there are in airports.
You have your e-ticket. You present it to the conductor when they ask for it. They scan it, and then there you go. You're on the train.
Yeah,
and then the train.
It's a much more pleasant. Riding the train is a much more pleasant experience than any airplane. Like
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like getting up and walking. Like I don't know if it feels like the spaces are bigger, but you do not feel as cramped as you do on a plane. Getting up and walking around is a lot easier. There are different types of cars. You can go to like the meal car and get a snack. Some trains have a viewing car where you can just sit and look outside. The bathrooms are much bigger, at least the one train that I was on recently. Yeah, and if the engine fails, you aren't going to die.
Well, everyone's going to die eventually. But right then,
in that
the
moment,
vehicle will not be the cause of your.
Right.
So the fun thing about taking the train, for me, was that I got to see on the way down. I'm talking about the way down. Because I'm going to do everything like kind of in order.
Okay.
There are stops, and I'm just sitting through the stops, not a big deal. And I learned something
What did you learn?
about a possible scam that people run for the
Okay.
trains, and then also how the trains react to the scam. So there was a guy who,
can I guess what you're gonna say?
uh-huh,
Where they don't check your ticket until after the train is left, so they just hop stop to stop, get on at one stop,
very,
don't have a ticket, get kicked off at the next stop, wait for the next train, get on that train.
yeah, well, here, you're very close.
Okay.
Here's the thing that was different. The person had a ticket, but their ticket was for October 15th. A
Okay.
completely different month and day from when we were traveling.
Yeah.
And because of that, he wasn't kicked off for not having a ticket.
Ah.
They were like, okay, look, this is the wrong thing. You can change it if you want to, and if you can't change it, you're gonna have to get off at Joliet. Now, Joliet was like 3 stops after the stop that we were on, so they didn't get kicked out at the next station. They got kicked out 3 stations down the line.
Huh.
And so that was kind of an interesting, like, I think that there was an agreement made with those with that guy and the conductor, basically.
Also, like, I don't know if it still exists, but there's a big like state penitentiary in Joliet, I believe, and so maybe it's a little like a persuasion factor for the passenger not to try to run a scam on the trains anymore, being faced with prison time.
You have to you'll get out at Joliet. Train judge. Oh, the train police. There are actual police officers that are just on the trains. That's their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. So I got there, and then I had a 3-hour layover. And something was going on at Union Station in Chicago where everything was closed. All the gates were closed. Everyone had to go to the same spot except for my train, my connecting train that was going to Glenview, Illinois.
Glenview.
And the connecting train to Glenview, Illinois was in a holding area. So like there was a nice lobby, but this wasn't where the connecting train went. There was a holding area that had these big industrial fans that were running. I actually had earplugs that I put in so that my ears weren't, damaged by the engine sound. And then I just waited, and a couple of things happened. I got up and I dropped my phone, and a woman returned it to me. And if
like you'd walked away from it.
Yeah, exactly. If she hadn't, it would have been a bad news situation for me.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
I went to the food court, and everything was closed except for McDonald's and Sbarro's. So I went to Sbarro's, obviously. And as I left Sbarro's, there was a kid, and we live in Seattle, or lived in Seattle. I lived in Seattle.
I
So
still do.
you can feel it. You're like, okay, well, here comes the story. And the kid's like, hey, my brother and I just need to go to Portland. Yeah. The tickets are $9.50 a piece. So anything you can do. And I was like, well, I'll tell you what. How about I go to an ATM and I give you $20? And he was like, oh, yeah, okay. It's bad. They took my insulin, and the cops don't care. And I'm like, yeah, it's too bad. And I'm just, yes, no. And here's the thing. I was like, okay, $20 seems like a good amount for listening to this kid's story. And then I gave him like the crust of my pizza and a thing of carrot cake that I had with me, because I was like, I'm not going to eat all this. Here, have this. And the whole time, right, we had an unspoken thing that we're just going through these motions. We know that
Yeah,
this story isn't actually
that's
true.
that's what I was gonna ask. Like, you didn't feel this kid's story was legit. He was just running
Yeah.
a game, but
Hmm.
you gave him money anyway.
And he knew that I knew that I wasn't agreeing with this story. It was just, hey, why don't we just, you know, why don't I just give you $20? How about that?
Yeah.
And so that worked out okay. Um, and I got to the bus. I got to the train on time. There was a woman who was there with a little girl, and the guy said, "Everyone, come follow me. We're not actually getting on the train here. We're getting on the train over in this station." And she just got up and left with her daughter and all of her stuff. And again, this is when I realized that I still have problems with empathy and things like that, because I didn't say anything to the girl who was crying and like, "Mom, where are you going, Mom, Mom?" I just walked to where she was, and I says like, "Hey, your daughter's still back there. No comfort to the not. Don't worry, I'll get your mom or whatever." Luckily, there was another person there, but I
Oh,
didn't
the
know that
woman
that
got
other
up
person was there.
without the
Without
child
her,
she was
without
with.
her, without her child, without her suitcases or anything, just got up, and which was weird, right? So I was like, I don't know what to do about that,
Yeah.
but I can tell this person and the conductor, hey, that's the mom of that kid, and I don't know if she would have, got on the train and left without her. I don't know exactly
Well,
what would
one would
happen.
hope not.
Yeah, but she seemed surprised that she had left her daughter and all of her suitcases. So who knows? Anyway, got on that train, got up at the station, and then it was about a 40-minute walk to my hotel. And
That's a healthy
the
walk. It's
idea
not too
was
bad.
yeah, exactly. The idea is I could have Ubered it, but why?
Right.
I'm supposed to be walking anyway, so this seemed like a good plan. I did call Jennifer one time because there was a portion of my walk that went down underneath into a tunnel, and all the street lights were out of this one specific spot. And I was just
Was it
imagining,
nighttime by this point?
yeah, it was nighttime by that point. I got to my hotel right around midnight.
Oh,
Um, so
long day.
yeah, I'm imagining that there's this guy who's got a slingshot and an idea, who knocks out all the streetlights and then hides under this bridge.
And then he's
Of
like,
course,
"Dang
that
it! I
guy,
used up all my pebbles on the lights."
yeah, what am I gonna do? But
Just
I
throws a
knew that,
slingshot at you.
like Superman, when the gun
Yeah.
gets thrown at him, ducking. So the main thing was that, and then she was like, you should get the app on your phone that you just release, and then it calls the police and all that. But because I'm clumsy enough, I would be worried about accidentally calling the police if I had that,
Right. Like
like
you
in my pocket.
forgot to check in or whatnot.
Exactly, yeah. So I got there. Um, the hotel room was not good. Uh, and they keep on Red Roof Inn keeps on saying, "Hey, rate this Red Roof Inn," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to blow up anybody's spot. I they're in a strip mall. I'm not really expecting a lot out of it, but like, there was hair on the sheets and a cigarette burn on the comforter, and the drain in the bathroom didn't work, and all that. Like,
So this was
the
like a
the big thing
very
was,
like 1-star economy hotel kind of
mhm.
thing.
If yeah, I'd say 2 stars maybe. The reason for that is, I mean, I didn't feel threatened by the staff, for example. That would be a 1 star in my opinion. Because there's no 0 stars. So they were friendly enough. The breakfast, if you stay at a hotel where there's breakfast included, Ben, yes, of
Yeah.
course, right?
Yeah.
There was a juice and water machine, you're used to the juice and water machine, I assume.
Yeah.
It had a sign on it that said water only, juice in fridge. So I went there, and Ben, get ready for it. In the fridge, orange drink. Ben,
Orange drink.
orange drink. 10% of the vitamin C you need in one cup of the orange drink, Ben. There's also a jug of milk.
You can drink an entire
dried-
carton of orange drink. You'll still
Yep.
only get 10% of your vitamin C.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not by volume, which is the weirdest thing. It's the concept of vitamin C.
Yeah.
So then there were packaged, and we're talking, off-brand, like Costco-ish sort of blueberry muffins, chocolate chip muffins, and what was it? Cinnamon rolls. So of
Yeah.
course I ate everything that they had to offer.
Exactly. You got to get your money's worth from the Red Roof Inn.
Exactly. And then
Did they
I just
have
sorta
like
hung-
a big like hot pan of like sausages and pancakes and
No.
scrambled eggs?
Absolutely not. No, there was no hot food whatsoever. It was
Yeah,
just
that's a
packaged
shame.
food. And so, I hung out there until it was time to go to the wedding, and I walked to the wedding. And when I got there, everyone was really nice. They all recognized me. I was in the ceremony. I didn't know this, but I was there with a boutonniere standing next to my dad and my
good for
brother.
You didn't know you were going to be a
Yeah.
part of it?
I didn't know. I
Did you
thought
have-
I was just an attendee.
Did you have nice
Uh,
clothes at least?
I had a
Normally,
a
the
green-
groomsmen are told what to wear.
Yeah, I had a green. It said cocktail attire, and I didn't know what that meant. So of course I
So
looked
I
up
wore
cocktail.
a martini glass.
I looked up cocktail suit on Amazon. It was one of the first things that came. It was this green velvet suit, which was nice. And yeah, so and then later on, we had a kind of a reception sort of thing. Oh, it was nice. It was a nice, everybody was there and they loved everybody, and everybody was nice to everybody, and there was no drama
That's nice.
at the wedding. The attendance was small. That might have been part of it. Like every single person that was there was known by the bride or the groom, and
I do appreciate the small weddings.
yeah. It was in somebody's backyard. There was a tent. I was sitting in the sun, which is not something I normally like to do.
Yeah.
But it was okay because of what the day was.
And this is also like each like your dad's and his new wife's. These were neither their first wedding, right?
I know it wasn't my dad's first wedding. I do not know about the bride, what her
And
situation
the only
was.
reason I ask, I mean, I guess I don't really need to know, but
I believe so, yeah.
I have, that is a thing that Americans at least do. If it's your second if it's not your first wedding, at least it normally is a very small affair. It is a backyard thing. It is like inside your grandma's house kind of thing,
Exactly. Or hey, this is a garden that we like to visit.
Yeah.
Let's
or we already got married at the courthouse. Come over to our backyard and just let's have a drink and celebrate.
That was this thing. They had gotten married on Valentine's Day, actually, of
That's
this
lovely.
year.
Oh,
so
on
this
your
is
daughter's
larger
birthday.
yeah, exactly. This is a larger ceremony for the friends, basically.
Yeah.
And so we all kind of hung out. And then here's the big thing. My dad is a musician.
I'm aware we did a music video for him.
We were in this is a different band the band that he's in now. They're all in it for the love of making music and stuff, and they're all really good. There's it's him. There's a percussionist. They're like the old adage, they have a couple of different people that play percussion with them, and they're all kind of good. One of I mean, the guy that was there that night was really good. The the regular percussionist that they have was DJing, because he does that as well. And then
Well,
are
he
you?
makes money DJing. So.
Yeah. Well, they make money. They make money too. Ginger Baker. Are you familiar with Ginger Baker from Cream?
Yeah,
They play with his son, or they're going to be playing with his son at some point in
oh,
time. If you
excellent.
ever saw the documentary Beware Mr. Baker,
I
his
have
son
not.
is in that documentary. I have. So it was one of those. It was a similar situation to I had seen you on the 10 Things I Hate About You trailer before I actually met you. The same thing. I saw this guy in the documentary, and in fact, Ginger Baker, right, reconnects with his son. His son is also a percussionist, and they play a concert together. And Ginger Baker's like, "Hey, we should go on tour or something together." And the son is like, "Oh, I'd really like that." And then Ginger Baker leaves and doesn't take his son with him, that sort of thing. And so watching that documentary, I was like, "Well, wonder what he's doing now." One of the things he's doing is playing music with my dad, so that's kind of cool. Um, and then
There's a pretty
oh
famous episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel Air where Will Smith meets his real dad, and his dad kind of like sneaks off. It's a very dramatic and emotional episode, and Will Smith is like, "Why don't he love me, man?" And yeah, so I could just imagine Ginger Baker's kid saying the same thing when Ginger Baker goes on tour without him.
yeah, exactly. After making the big promises and all that.
Yeah.
But it was really wonderful. I had a lot of good conversations with those folks. When it came time for me to come home, people were like, "Well, do you want to ride? Do you want to get?" And I was like, "No, no, it's fine." And I just walked back to the hotel
Yeah.
again. And but the other thing
That
was that,
Midwestern
you know
hospitality.
one of the things about that kind of wedding and all that, you know, uh, Kevin's, uh, my dad's new wife was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing tomorrow? Why don't you guys hang out before Paul takes the train back?" And I'm like, "Yes, of course, that would be great." And so, uh, I got up and walked again back to the train station, and we met outside the train station. We hung out, um,
That sounds lovely.
and yeah, yeah, yeah. We got ice cream, and I made the mistake, I suppose you could say, of getting a root beer slushy kind of thing. But the slushy kind of thing that I got tasted weirdly sour. But I
Okay.
didn't want to go back,
Yeah.
so I just drank some of it, and then I threw the rest of it away. And I said to him, he was like, "Did it taste bad?" I was like, "Well, it wasn't necessarily that bad, but I also don't need to eat a lot of ice cream, and
Right.
this is all fine."
I'm also saying, I'm not saying it was bad, but I am recommending you don't get one.
Yeah. Um, and then we just talked about his life and things, and it was all really great. And then I got on the train, and the train was like 15 minutes early, and I said to the conductor, "Was there another one that's coming at 4, or is this the one?" She's like, "As far as I know, this is the one." And I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
okay." And I
As long
got
as you're going to
on,
Chicago.
and that's the thing, is that I got on and I was looking around, and yeah, this is the right train. We're going to Union Station. And then I started looking, and we started making local stops, like a bunch of local stops. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm on the local train. Got on
Yeah.
the wrong train."
Oh, you did
And
get on
she
the
said,
wrong
"Hey,
train.
hey, were you talking about the Amtrak?" And I was like, "I was
Oh,
wondering why this
no.
said Metra." Um, and just then got a text from Amtrak saying that their train was running a half hour late. And so it was one of those situations, the luck of the Irish, as they say. Guy steps in dog poop and then says, "Well, good thing I wasn't wearing my nice shoes today." Luck of the Irish. Same sort of thing. If I hadn't gotten on the wrong train, I would have missed my connection because the
Ah.
other train was slow. So
So you stayed on, even though it was the milk run, you stayed on that train and made it to Union Station in
yeah,
time for your connection.
exactly. And the way I thought about it was this: it made logical sense because, oh, first of all, she said that she wasn't going to charge me for being on the train because She
Because you
told me
already
to get
paid
on it.
for a ticket. Oh, she did.
Well,
Okay.
I paid for an Amtrak ticket. I didn't pay for a Metro ticket. That's
Ah, gotcha.
a different company altogether.
Yeah.
It's like you can't use the bus to ride the slut or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, they've changed all that. You can these
South Lake
days.
Union Transit, everybody. That's what it was. Is it
Trolley.
still called that?
South Lake
South
Union
Lake Union
Trolley.
Trolley. Yep.
Nobody calls it the slut anymore. That name is so 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, I still enjoyed it. So the basic thing is that, I made it there on time. I got some caramel and cheese popcorn. That's the Chicago style popcorn. It's mixed together, caramel and cheese. If you haven't had it, you should try it. I'm not saying that it's not this weird cheesy caramel. It's individual caramel popcorn and individual cheese popcorn
Yeah.
all mixed together.
I
It's
don't know
really
if I'd
good.
I don't know if I'd appreciate it all mixed together. I didn't realize how much of a big thing popcorn was in Chicago until I started flying through Chicago more regularly.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's a whole like popcorn stands.
Yep. So I got some popcorn for Jennifer. Um, and then I ended up getting the pizza puff because we've talked about this before. Every once in a while, when I see an advertisement for some sort of food or whatever, I'm always like, there's a chance. I've now termed it the Pringles gospel. There are Pringles everywhere, right? You go to a convenience store, there are Pringles and all that. And
They're very ubiquitous.
I love the idea that when you die, the Pringles man shows up and he's like, "So, did you enjoy the Pringles?" And the whole reason that you were on Earth was to eat his Pringles at every opportunity. And then you could be like, "Yeah, I had some, and they were pretty good,
I really
pretty
enjoyed
good."
the ranch flavor.
Yeah, all the different flavors. Yeah, but and then he looks at you kind of, but the regular Pringles are still good. Yes, they are. And then he looks
you,
over at all of his disciples or angels or whatever and goes, "See?" Like, I
you
don't know
can't have the other flavors without the original.
exactly. So anyway, the idea was, all right, well, I'll get the pizza puff. The pizza puff was okay. And the French fries were just
Okay.
made, but they were the thick cut steak fries, which are my least favorite type of fry. But still, an okay meal. No one asked me for money at that time. And then
Oh.
I got on.
Except for the
I
people who
got on.
sold you the
Yep,
pizza.
right, exactly. Oh yes, good point. Um, but the other thing that was weird is that they weren't saying what gate I needed to be at, and that's something about the Chicago Union Station that is important. Is the trains don't you don't know what gate the train is going to be at. They'll tell you, and then you have to hoof it over to the
Yeah.
gate. And it just so happened that the gate that I was going to was farther away from where I was planning on going. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
um there was a I was in the south terminal and there was a wall between the part of the south terminal that I was in and the south terminal uh gate number that I need to be at. And I would have missed my train if not for some two guys walking by going, "She said it was gate 27. I don't know where gate 27 is. St. Louis? Yeah, St. Louis." And then they went. So then I followed them. And
Handy.
then on the way back, uh, pretty uneventful, but a couple of things. One is that people kept on missing their stops because there's an electronic board that says, what station is coming up next. And the
Yeah.
board was off.
Yeah.
And when I say the board was off, I don't mean that it wasn't showing a picture.
Right.
I
It
mean
was
that
like
it said the
one
next
off
station.
or two
Yeah,
off. Yeah.
yeah. And so the person who was doing the announcements was saying the right place, but the board showed different. And a lot of people were wearing their headphones. And so I went back and I said, "You guys know that the board is off, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, just listen to me." And I was like, "Okay, I I know that, and good." I didn't say this to them. This is just what I was thinking. I already know that. I was saying it for the people that, and the thing that's really weird is that they never made an announcement that said, don't look at the board.
Right.
They just kept on doing the thing that they were doing, which I think was maybe a problem. And then also the other thing is that I went to go and use the restroom, and the door was sliding open, and the person who was at the snack car was shouting something at me, and what she was shouting was, "There's somebody in there." And I didn't do the thing that I've seen people in my town do whenever someone's like, "Oh, that lane's closed," or when someone gives them information and they aren't very nice about it. They don't say like, "I'm sorry, sir, but that lane is closed." They just say that
Right.
lane is closed.
Yeah.
What happens a lot is that the men in my area will go, "Well, how was I supposed to know that? Now I'm wrong." That "now I'm wrong" is not what they, but I mean, that's the thing, is that they're like, it's your fault
Yeah.
that I am now wrong. And I didn't do that. I just said, "Oh, sorry," which is good. And then I got back, and Betty was at home, and the dog was at home. Betty and the dog were maybe going to come and visit me when Jennifer picked me up. They were going to be in the car, but they were not. And then I got back, and the dog was all crazy and wiggly. Jennifer called me one night and said, "Can you FaceTime with the dog?" Because the dog was looking around for me and whining, which is, and yet he's not down here now. So
Well, he knows you're in the house, so it's safe.
exactly. And so that was my trip to Chicago. Was there anything that you were wondering? Anything that I didn't cover?
You were only in Chicago for the one night?
2 nights. So
2 nights.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I went there. I got there, remember, at midnight.
Yeah.
Slept, got up, went to the park. Oh, I forgot to say, Kevin's band played, and it was really nice. I got to see them play like the Quite Contrary song. They played that live.
Even though that's a different band?
Yep. Because they're all Kevin songs. And this is one of the things, is that my brother sitting next to me. So my brother Sean and my sister Ren were both there. They're younger than me. They're a lot younger than me.
They're both of like Kevin's their dad as well.
Kevin's their dad as well. Yep. And Sean's singing along, and I'm like, "Oh, wow." And he was like, "Yeah, I know all these songs because my dad would play them in the living room over and over and over again."
Yeah.
And so, it's not like he doesn't like them. He does like them, but the idea that I would be surprised that he would know them was
Right.
funny. But it was really nice. And the thing I wanted to mention is that Boom Boom, that is the guy whose house the wedding was at, is a member of the band, and he plays the washtub bass.
Oh.
And the guitar player, Rick, is a luthier, which might be a term you're familiar with. It's someone who makes guitars.
Okay.
And he installed a pickup on the washtub bass, so it sounds really good.
Loud.
It gets played through a washtub bass amp.
Yeah.
And it's really nice.
Put some pedals on that shit.
Yep. So I stayed for the entire concert. Some other people left because they had places to go.
People to
see. Exactly. And then I left, walked back home, or walked back to the hotel.
Yeah.
Slept, and then got up and walked to the train station. So there were 2 nights, basically. It was good. It was all right. I never turned the TV on once. I read 2 graphic novels. It was Mind Management, Mind MGMT. I highly recommend it. They're very good. There are 3 omnibuses, and I have all 3, and they're some of my favorite books. And now you know the rest of the story.
The rest of the story. And that man's name was Abraham Lincoln.
Apparently, conservative guy.
Paul Harvey?
Yeah,
Back
that's
in
what
the
I heard.
day when he was on the radio, my mom would listen to him. I didn't really so much know about or care about liberals versus conservatives.
Well, and I have to say that conservatives have changed a little
Yeah,
bit.
I mean, but a conservative from like the late 70s, early 80s is like a moderate liberal today.
Although I will say this, William F. Buckley Jr., remember that guy
I do?
at all?
Yeah.
Um, called Gore Vidal the F slur on live television and threatened to punch him. It was kind of crazy when I saw the clip of it. Hey, speaking about crazy clips, Ben, you got a haircut the last time that we were speaking,
No, I think
and I had forgotten about it.
I think I had I got it. I got this a couple weeks ago, so I think I had it last time we spoke.
Right, you just the last time we spoke, you had just gotten a haircut. Roll
Uh,
the or near.
I'll have to check the calendar because I don't know if it was right before the last time or the time before that.
Okay, well,
Although since we
all that
do
I'm saying is
live stream all these, you can go back and look at when my hair actually did change.
exactly, yeah, yeah. Find out. Sound off in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. So,
don't sound off.
speaking about the comments, I wanted to let you know. I don't know if Drunk is on or not.
Nope.
I went to Schnucks and I got the St. Louis style Schnucks branded pizza.
Oh yeah.
And here's the verdict from me and my wife. It is better than Emo's,
Okay.
but it is still not good.
Emos must be terrible then.
Hey, look, man. I would never say that out loud
To
anywhere.
somebody who works at
Um,
Emos.
or to somebody who lives in and it's it's people are used to it and
Yeah.
you get to crave it eventually. I ate 3 pieces out of 8 and then put the rest of it down the hill in the hopes that the raccoons will eat it. Um, so so that happened, and then there was
So here's
something else. Oh yeah, go ahead.
we're gonna play an issue of Paul gonna guess the news.
Ready for it. Let's do it.
So this is a local story that's been making national headlines this week, and I'm
Ooh,
gonna see if you
gosh.
can pick it up. So,
Okay.
back in January, a terrible accident occurred here in Seattle, where a Seattle police officer racing to the scene of a crime struck and killed a pedestrian.
Yeah.
Now, video news just came out this Monday of something that happened after that accident.
I think I know this. Um, there was a conversation between 2 members of law enforcement. I don't know exactly if it was the 2 police officers, police officer and supervisor, whatever. And there was some levity surrounding the person that got hit. And someone mentioned the idea that maybe the value of this person's life was not as high as it could have been or as somebody else.
You're spot on. I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
well. So the larger context here is that the Seattle Police Department and the community at large have a hard time coexisting. The community does
Yes.
not like SPD. SPD has some strange sort of antagonism towards the citizenry of Seattle. And so Seattle PD is just I don't know if they care, but you know that their image within the community needs to be improved. This did not help. So what happened was and the police union, the Seattle Police Officers Guild, is like largely at fault for all of this. Like there was one tweet they sent where there was like a news story of like a shooting or a stabbing or something, and they retweeted it and wrote "Feel safer yet," because the community wants to defund the police was a big thing around here in 2020.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Officers Guild is that they're kind of like taunting the citizens of Seattle. So what happened was
Yeah.
the vice president of this union went to the scene of the accident because he is also like a drug recognition expert. So he was testing the officer who was speeding for if he was under the influence of anything. On the way back, he called on his cell phone, I guess, the president of the officers union. And
Ah.
so, and he was the vice president, a guy by the name of Daniel Otterer, was talking about the accident in a very like cold, matter of fact way, kind of like the way you would expect a police officer to say something. But he did say those things. He's like, I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said, but he said that she was a regular person. And granted, we don't hear the other side of this conversation. We only hear what
Right.
Officer Otterer was saying. She was a regular person. He laughs like the other guy had just told him a joke a couple times. And then he says, yeah, just had the city write a check. $11,000. She was only 26. Her value wasn't high, and
Wow.
then realized his body cam was on. So you see in the footage his hand like reaching for the off button on his body cam. I paid attention to this story yesterday so much, and I was because I was like I read all the comments and all the times it was posted. I watched all the news stories. I saw all the blogs where it posted about this. So this officer, this Daniel Otterer, he had a long rap sheet of the times he was investigated by the OPA, the officer. What does that stand for? Basically the cop police, right? They're the ones
Yeah.
who investigate when cops do bad things.
Internal
Officer
affairs kind of thing, or
Something
is it
like
a
that.
citizen group?
It's. I don't know if it's a citizen group, but I don't think it is because every time he was accused of something, he'd been like the OPA had like Office of Police Accountability. They had
Okay.
like let him go, right?
Gotcha.
But the reason I bring this up, and the reason I was so interested in the story is because Daniel Otterer was a friend of mine in high school.
What?
Yeah.
A friend of yours, not just someone that you knew. He was a guy
we
that
were
you were friends with.
we were kind of tight in middle school, and I'll grant you, in
Wow,
high
Ben.
school we kind of drifted apart, but we were always friendly, right? He was like, "Hey Dan, hey Ben," and didn't keep in touch after high school, right? Because I went to a large high school, you can't keep in touch with everybody. I had my core group of friends that.
Yeah.
I saw him at the 20th year reunion. I had a very pleasant conversation with him. He told me he was a SPD officer. I'm like, hey, don't pull me over, ha ha. And then now, come to find out, he is a very bad cop.
Now, here's the thing that I want to check with you. I'm not talking about doxing this man. I want to say that at the beginning. But there was something that I was going to say, and what I was going to say after that was, well, we have no way of knowing. But I think we maybe do. When you had mentioned that there is an issue between the people of the city of Seattle and SPD.
Yeah.
My question is, do the officers in SPD live in the city, or do they live in communities outside of the city and then commute to work?
In this specific case, I do not know. Because I
But
did
do you know
actually,
in the larger sense? Do you know if there are statistics? Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't. That's an interesting angle. I don't know if these because the officers are like they're. It seems like they run even for a progressive city such as Seattle. The officers run very right leaning and MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there was like news came out that there was a fake tombstone in the East Precinct that had the name of a young black man that was killed by a Seattle police officer, but not in like a memorial way. There was also allegedly a Trump flag inside one of the SPD buildings. And so I read this thing where there was a big push to enlist young, right-leaning men to become police officers, not just in Seattle, but in other municipalities.
Yeah.
for reasons. I don't exactly remember the rationale,
I
but
mean, honestly, isn't that kind of the general mindset of who you want to be police officers in a society such as ours? Yeah, I feel like that's what most of the people who support the police think of when they think of the police officers they're supporting. Like
right-leaning men.
soldiers. Like, yeah, I think that that's
I don't know, man.
what they imagine.
I think that mentality is sort of different here in Seattle, where
Oh, in Seattle, sure, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
Okay.
thing
That makes
about the thing about the
Are you
original
saying that
acts.
the city of Seattle, like the mayor's office and things like that, we're all saying this is what we need on our police force?
No, well, the mayor, oddly enough, the mayor's office is very pro SPD. Like Bruce Harrell is on the side of police,
Gotcha. Yeah.
in their current culture, even though he ran on like changing the police culture.
Yeah.
But Seattle very much wants to not just like defund the police is an interesting phrase because and I got twisted around because it doesn't really mean like take the entire budget away. It means
Yeah.
divest their duties so police officers aren't responding to mental health calls. They're not responding
Right.
to other sorts of things. And the instigating accident of this whole thing, the officer who was speeding, he was doing 74 and a 25 down Dexter Avenue. He was responding to an overdose call. Like, why is a Seattle police officer responding to an overdose call at such speeds?
Right. You would think that
Like, why
the
isn't why aren't the EMTs doing that? Why
Right.
aren't anybody else but a cop with a gun responding to some guy who's still on the phone with 911 because he's afraid he's ODing on cocaine, which is actually what was happening.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
So anyway, that happened, and I spent most of my day yesterday learning about an old friend who's a very terrible person. But here's the thing: it just adds like credence to the idea that police culture can take an otherwise funny, easygoing dude and turn them into absolute monsters.
There was a book that I read when I was in high school that made a big impression on me, called Signal Zero, which is about and I might get this wrong, but it was about a sociology professor who took a challenge from one of his students, who said that being a police officer is, hard and there's a reason why we are the way we are. And he took a challenge and went to the police academy. And it's a really, I want to know if it's a real book or if it's metafiction. I think it's a real book, because in the book, what happens is that you, as the reader, see this left-leaning guy become a right-leaning, pro police guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, that this isn't my fault. This is you guys. You're the ones who made me like this. And you and your crimes and your, you don't want to, you need us there. It's very Jack Nicholson, you need me on that wall kind of statement at the end of the book. So it's really interesting, but it made me go, because at one point in time I wanted to be a police officer, and
oh yeah,
it's good that it didn't happen, because I can't do that. If being the police officer was all about following the rules and the laws, I could do that.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's about, depending on where you're at also, but it's about interpreting the gray areas where you could follow the law, but if you did, then this would happen. Making that call. And when I say if you do, this will happen, I mean, part of it is your partner and your fellow police officers would shun you, and or you could get hurt. That sort of thing.
we interviewed Norm Stamper, who was the chief of police here in Seattle during the WTO riots,
Mm.
and like lost his job soon after that, after like a long career in the police force. And he was talking about how he went into SPD specifically to help change its culture and foster a more like community-driven police force. And he was like, I wasn't expecting it, but I went in to change the culture, and the culture changed me.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened in this book.
Yeah.
Same exact thing. Hey, on that note,
Hey, we did
yay!
it!
We did it. Congratulations, everyone.
Yay.
Just want to say that the Edwardsville Police Department, I I got arrested one time when I was in high school for stealing a box of candy, and the the funniest thing happened, in my opinion. They took me back from the police station to the high school, and brought me to the office and said that I needed to go back to class. And they said, why was he gone? And the police officer sort of banged his head a little against the wall and like gestured to himself. And he was like, he was at the place where the police go, or something to that effect. Which I thought was fun.
Yeah.
And then later on, when I got into a car accident, he was the police officer that showed up there, and
There's one guy in
it was
Edwardsville.
a complete, yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, small town. I don't have that much reaction. I don't have that much interaction with the police here now.
I would
Uh,
assume not.
I sometimes I went there to get fingerprinted, uh, for an unrelated matter. And with that, then I will see you next week. Oh,
Paul, see you next
or
week.
just a second
Or
from now.
in just a few moments. In
Yeah.
which case, I implore you to keep it wrong, sir.
Ben, I would ask you, for the love of all that you love and I love, keep it wrong. I'll talk to you more later.
And we're back. Paul
And now
Goody.
I'm not going to call Ben because I'm already on the phone with him. This is this is a twofer, what we call. Sometimes
It's a
when
twofer.
either Ben or I have to go, we bank the episode so that we
Yeah.
can
I'm
do
going to
it.
be out of town next Thursday. I'm actually,
Ben,
as we're recording, I'm going to be on a plane.
you're going to be on it. That's what I was going to say. What mode of
Yeah.
transportation you take, Ben?
Uh,
Hey,
I'd much rather be on a train, but the train would take too long.
yep, that's how it works with trains for sure.
Yep.
Ben, let me ask you a question. The new U what is it?
UAV,
UAPs?
unmanned aerial vehicle.
Yeah, or so with all these things going on, are you any more nervous of flying because there might be little other machines up there with you?
Am I worried about
Does
my
that make
commercial
you
airliner getting shot down by drones?
or aliens, Ben?
Oh, you're
Here,
talking about that. You know
UAPs, I
what?
think they're called.
You know what? I have not been paying attention at all to that news. I know that like
Yeah.
Mexico had recently held a press conference and their reveal of their alien was so laughable that Reddit has been like all over it.
Well, now here's the interesting thing. And I will tell you this. This is one of those Reddit guys. You don't have to do anything because
And
they're
it's
like, well,
almost
this.
all guys.
So what my understanding of it? This is my understanding from what I read in a legitimate publication. The Mexican government basically just did what the U.S. government did. They had a congressional thing,
Yeah.
and they had people come in and you know talk about stuff and all that. The the thing that's going on Reddit is like, well, this isn't actually the Mexican government. This is, they aren't really the Mexican government. They're
Oh, I
just
haven't
something that's
heard that.
calling themselves the Mexican Congress, but it's not really the government and stuff like that. If that is in fact the case, that's not what this news article said. The news article said that this was similar to what happened in the U.S., so on and so forth. Again, you don't have to try that hard. You don't have to try as hard as you're doing to keep this from
It's
happening. So the alien body thing.
yeah.
So this is the story with the alien body thing.
Which
They
am I
aren't.
thinking of the same one? It looks like this like mummified stone
Yep,
alien body kind of thing. Okay.
exactly. And that's the thing is that they were shown during this thing, right?
Yeah.
Somebody came in and they showed this deal.
Look what I have in my
They are
box.
they are not exactly. This is my. They aren't supposed to be from a crash or anything like that. These are supposedly, and this is the thing that's crazy about it, right? Um, they're like, well, this guy has done this before. This guy has done this before. He's shown these alien bodies, but they really aren't. And this is the thing that just made me crazy. Again, you don't have to try so hard. They weren't alien bodies. It turned out that they were mummified bodies of children. Okay, you don't have to say anything else. You don't have to say, oh, these look like they were doctored. Oh, I think that somebody made this. And this is always the problem that I have when anything UFO related happens, anything psychic phenomenon related happens, any
Yeah.
of that stuff. So somebody has a video, and in the video there's a weird looking skin monster that runs around, and it looks like a ladder that's made out of skin, and it runs around, right? let's
Right.
say
Yeah.
let's say you had that.
Yeah.
One person posts and says, that's not a ladder made out of skin, those are two snakes and they're fighting. And somebody else says, this is obvious CGI, you can see the artifacts.
Yeah.
It can't be both those things. It can't, right?
What if it were
And I don't like
CGI
that.
of two snakes fighting?
Exactly. It could be that. But the basic thing is that people try too hard. People, when they see something that they can't explain, they don't just want to say, which is what I'm the suggestion that I have for everyone. And granted, I am the we maybe live in a simulation guy. I realize that.
You?
But my suggestion is that when something like that happens, just go, yeah, I don't know what that is. That's all you have to do. You can just say, I don't know what that is. Doesn't mean that it's what you think it is. I don't know what that is. Doesn't mean it's an alien.
Paul,
I'm looking at this. I
do
don't
you-
I don't get it. Yeah.
Do you believe in aliens? Hey, well, let me like put this in a
This is
two-part question.
actually a great question. Go ahead.
There's two parts to this question. The first part is
Yeah.
I'll just ask them both at the same time. Do you believe aliens exist? Do you believe that we've been visited by them?
All right. So let me sidestep your question for just a second. Because what is of course my base, where do I operate from? What is my base mindset? You know this, I've told you many times. Do you
That we
remember
live
what
in a
it is?
simulation.
That this world is, not just a simulation, but it is a very, it's both a physical and a temporal one. And the more you look into things, the deeper it goes. That memory is a sense that allows you to find objects through time, just like an imagination allows you to pinpoint objects in the future. So time is a dimension, just like space is, right? You want to fit 100 people in a room that's 5 by 5. You can do it. You just have to split it up in time and have them show up at different intervals. and then you can fit 500 people in that room. That's just an example. So I think that there are unexplained things, right?
Yeah.
And I think those unexplained things are, uh, well, you've done theater before. Neutral, right? The neutral mask, the idea that you don't have any characteristics that you're doing. You're just standing and you're sort of waiting. And then they say, okay, now be angry, now be, and then go back to
Yeah.
neutral.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what part of theater does that, but in the same way,
Well, we did
there are
that with
things that are
clowning.
unexplained. Right, exactly. That's right, clowning. So there are things in the world that are unexplained, and they end up taking on the characteristics that we give them from our minds as we investigate them. So, in my opinion, angels, UFOs, fairies, the Loch Ness monster, all of those things are all this stuff.
Ghosts, Bigfoot,
Ghosts,
cryptids of
Bigfoot,
sorts. Yeah.
cryptids. And then eventually, if enough time and effort are put into them by people, they become something real in our reality. They stop becoming malleable. Example being orangutans, right? They were mythical for a little bit. Now we've got them in zoos, and they're a type of great ape.
And they hate it.
Bigfoot could. Oh, they do. They do. Did you ever see the footage that just came out recently? Did you ever see the footage that just came out recently? I know it, of an orangutan chucking a possum out of its tree.
No, I didn't see that.
You don't get to see him throw it. You just get to see the possum flying through the air, and then the orangutan looking out while all these people go, "Hey!" It's great.
No ticket.
So that's what I think, right? So these alien bodies, right, that they're showing in Mexico, there's something, right? Are they children? Are they paper mache? Are they? I don't know. As we investigate it, we will find out, and it will become more real and more solid. Uh,
Yeah, I mean that's how
but,
a lot of things
oh,
were.
we
That's how a lot of mythical things came up in the first place, as you're saying. That's I believe that's how religion came about. It's people
yeah,
trying to make
a
sense of the
couple,
world around them.
right. We talked about the Biko effect
Yeah.
a couple of podcasts ago. Stephen Biko was a South African uh, who was killed by police, and there was a song by Peter Gabriel made about him and all that. And a lot of people who think that Nelson Mandela died in prison are actually thinking of Stephen Biko.
Yeah.
And so the Biko effect is when the thing that seems really weird and you can lose your mind over, thankfully, wonderfully becomes some mundane thing that can be proven. A great example, one of the most fun things that I've seen in a while is somebody saying, okay, I saw this troll-like creature with troll doll-like hair that was black and white uh, in my yard. And somebody wrote to them and said, did it look like this? And they showed them a photograph. They're like, that was it. That was it. And they said, that's a skunk getting ready to spray on its hind legs. And what you're actually seeing is not a fuzzy afro. You're seeing the tail of the skunk that's in
Yeah.
the air. It's doing a handstand. That's a wonderful example of what could have been a frightening or at least disturbing otherworldly creature getting slammed back into reality uh, and becoming a skunk. And the thing is that, and this is the thing about time, right? Once that thing's a skunk, it's always been a skunk, right? That's how you save yourself. It's the same thing. There's a thing, a book called Voodoo the something like the Voodoo Quantum Leap, I think it's called. I wish, again, keep it wrong. Don't know the name exactly. I think it's Voodoo Quantum Leap. Voodoo might be spelled with an OU instead of an OO. But the basic thing is that one of the things they note, Protestants are very good at dealing with demonic possession because they don't have imaginations. And so
They
if
don't
somebody's
have
possessed,
imaginations.
yeah, if someone's possessed, they don't feed into it. They're like, this person's crazy. And so the person becomes crazy. They're no longer possessed. They're simply mentally ill. And so I like that idea a lot. That aliens are alien until you know what they are, and then they stop being alien. I've turned an alien into a coat in the past. Um, I've turned
Well, you've turned a coat into an alien.
did I? I don't think so. Oh, you mean
Well,
I had turned a coat into an alien,
always
and
a
then
coat.
it was always a coat, right? Exactly. So it was never an alien. You make a good point. My own words against me.
You know
You
what,
know,
the only reason, well, like one of the reasons, obviously that's what we're talking about right now, but it's interesting because I feel like me personally and the country as a whole, you know, if you had said 20, 30 years ago, like the government, the U.S. government, not the Mexican government, the U.S. government is going to hold congressional hearings about what they are calling unidentified, you know, mystery objects or whatever UAP is supposed to
yeah,
stand for. And basically,
unidentified aerial phenomenon.
there you go, unidentified aerial phenomenon and whatever. And U.S. is like, these are not of human origin. I think that's the phrase they
Yep.
used, right? And, you know, 20, 30 years ago, everybody would have freaked out. You know,
Yep.
it would have been the biggest news. And today, people are like, you know, that just escaped, that went by without barely a notice.
Yeah.
And
And
now
that's,
people are like, we don't, so what?
I mean, the basic concept, this has always been something, that they talk about. This is the thing and I'll give you the other reason why I'm not a big fan of the UFO subculture, because not everyone, not everyone. I just want to make sure. And when I say the UFO subculture, I'm not talking about UFOs. I'm talking about the aliens are here among us, and they're doing stuff. It's because a lot of the stuff is anti-Semitic coded. A lot of the stuff is, you know,
Yeah.
uh, like adrenochrome is just blood libel with another, uh, coat of paint on it. That sort of thing. So not a big fan. But the basic idea is that, whenever you talk about, there are these shadowy figures and they control everything from behind the scenes, uh, it it gets real dicey real fast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they can hide among us, Ben. They look just like us. All that kind of stuff. It's
But if you know what to look for, you can spot them.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very badly coded. The TV show V
Yeah.
had a huge following when I was a kid. Everybody talked about it. We
I
all
remember
liked
it
it.
being on TV. It was like a miniseries, yeah?
And yeah, it was a miniseries. And you know, a, the guy who wrote it, I think, is the same person that wrote the episodes of the Bionic Woman that had Bigfoot in them.
I never
And
saw
and
those.
Andy, friend of the podcast, Andy actually has talked to the guy, and all that. They're some of my favorite bits, right? But the thing that I personally have to watch out for and have been watching out for, and I think I've been doing a good job, is to maintain skepticism as a defense mechanism, right? Because you remember, and you heard me about this, about the man who was the raccoon that lived under my house when I was in Seattle and staying in Highland Park.
Yes.
I was in the bathtub and I heard a scratching underneath the tub, like through the back of the tub, and I knocked
Yeah.
on it, and then there was a knock back. And then one night I saw, or not one night, one morning, I was leaving the house and there was a guy who crawled out from underneath my crawl space and scaled the fence that was next to my property and jumped over it. That was weird, right?
Yeah.
And I can't think that hard about that time. because when I do, it makes me go a little loopy. Um,
I mean, it could.
so
You don't think it was just an unhoused person who was dwelling underneath your house?
oh, I think that my house was a place where unhoused people went.
Yeah.
That's what I think now. At the time, though, it was a man who could change into a raccoon, and I really thought that. There's another time when I was at Retreat. Remember Retreat? We would go there every once in a while. Those
I miss
cabins.
it.
Um, and a whole bunch of shirtless frat guys ran through the camping area that we were at,
Wait, when was this?
and then turned into deer. And all of a sudden they were deer and not shirtless frat guys. And again, they were always deer, and they never were shirtless frat guys. But
Yeah.
for a moment in my memory, that's what they were. And so this is the taking of the fantastic and turning it mundane, right? Is a defense mechanism that human beings have that keep us from being too scared of the dark and that sort of thing. That's why it's nice to have a fire. That's why it's nice to be around a group of people so that you can say, "Hey, did you just see that?" Uh, because when you're by yourself, you don't have that. And so instead of going, "Oh, it's just raining," you think that there are hundreds of rats crawling on your roof until you see that it's raining, and then you're like, "Oh, okay, that's what that is." Um, so
Have
yeah.
you ever been scared of the unknown?
Oh, always. Ben, if I'm alone by myself, absolutely. There are experiences that I have had that, obviously the one that's described in the A Glitch in a Matrix documentary, where I just lost all
This is in church.
sense of everything. Yeah, like the church wasn't there anymore. Nothing was there. I was compressed, and there was nothing around me. Was frightening, right? The most the most existential horror that I've ever felt. But there's also like mundane horror, like in the basement of the parsonage next to that church. Uh, I can't describe it other than uh, in that basement there's a pantry, and that pantry is like radiating fear into me when I'm next to it. And like as I if I'm dreaming and I'm dreaming of that place, I can recreate that feeling, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes I dream that I'm in there, and it always freaks me out, and I can't wake up right away, all that sort of stuff. But I still remember as a kid, oh, it was nuts. That was a it was a and what I'm saying is I didn't like see a ghost in there. I didn't, none of that. I did see a ghost in that house, but I didn't see a ghost in the pantry. The pantry just felt wrong. That's the only way I can describe it. Um,
Like the
but the
aura
house,
was bad of the
yeah, a
pantry.
really bad, horrible aura. But I did see a ghost. Well, I saw basically I saw two different times. I saw a ghost two different times. One, I was in my bedroom, and there was a woman with a handkerchief tied around her head who was cleaning in the area outside of my room,
Yeah.
which was weird. Uh, and that person maybe was real. Maybe they were a real person, and I was a kid, and they were over and just were helping my dad tidy up or whatever. But I asked him about it, and he said that he didn't know what I was talking about. My dad, oh no, my dad was just having an affair with a cleaning woman. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh
Go
my
back to
gosh.
sleep.
No, that didn't happen, but that would be crazy. And then the other one, there was a woman who was standing over my bed, looking at me while I was sleeping, standing like this. And I reached out to touch her, and she turned into these golden orbs and just floated away like that. Another time, I was in the room. This is back, so I would have been around uh, 2 or 3. I have memories from when I was 2 or 3 because there are memories that involve my mom Barbara before she died.
Right.
And in that dream or reality, whichever, I got scared. I went into their room and because they say that when you're that age, you kind of have a hard time differentiating. So I was lying down, I was looking at my dad, and there was a little purple goat that was hopping around his face and would hop in his nose and out his ear and just move around. And I knew that the ghost was the ghost. Ugh, the goat was bad because it had a really weird, evil grin on its face.
This is Beelzebub himself.
That was crazy. Um, when I was a uh, kid around the same time, there was a baseball player that was in my closet. I called him a baseball player because he had black under his eyes, like a
Yeah.
baseball player does, and because he was crouched at the door like a catcher in baseball.
And that's
So I
when I
put those
found
two
out
things together.
my mom was having it for Johnny Bench.
Exactly. He was a he had like on like a kind of a white uniform type thing, and he just was crouching by my closet door. And I told my dad about him. Like I called for my dad to come in, and the guy walked into the closet. My dad said, "Where is he?" And I said he went into the closet. My dad looked in the closet, came out, said there's nobody there, and he left. And the baseball player came back, like all at the same time. Now it's interesting. You talk about you know uh, these things becoming other things, right?
Yeah.
A thing in a white uniform crouched by the end of the bed with black underneath their eyes, you could theoretically make the argument that maybe that was an alien, right? Like one of the
Yeah.
Greys or whatever. But at the time, that's not what it looked like. And if you look at aliens and descriptions of aliens before Communion with from Whitley Strieber, that iconic cover that had the alien with the big eyes and the you remember that
I
it
don't
was
know if
in
you.
a whole bunch of bookstores and all that sort of thing.
All
Once
right.
that came in, then all
If
of a
I
sudden
saw it,
all
I'd
aliens
recognize
look
it.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the alien that all aliens look like now.
Yeah.
But before then, they were all over the place. They were, 8 foot tall and purple and really short and hairy and like all sorts of stuff. And then again, this is what I'm talking about. A coup happened to the brains of the human beings where that became what these things look like now to us. It is funny also. There's a documentary called The Monument, not The Monument Men. Sorry, that is a movie, but it's called The Mirage Men. That's about government agents pushing the idea that there are aliens for their own agenda.
Yeah.
So the idea is that there are people out there who are talking about like underground bases and things like that, uh, because and the hypothesis that I had for it, I don't know why they're doing it, but my hypothesis is this: is that I can tell you, not for a sure thing, but I can tell you at least a little bit that things that are top secret, classified, that kind of stuff, um, aren't always like really interesting. If you look at stuff that's become declassified in the past, it's not all alien videos, right? Sometimes it's that this person did this thing at this time or whatever.
Yeah.
Standard things, right? So the idea is this: if you have lower level top secret stuff that you want people to um, keep secret, the first thing that you do is you give them a big secret. Aliens exist, or there's a concentration camp of U.S. citizens that are all staying in FEMA trailers, or whatever, something big. and then you see if that information gets out, and then you trace that link and find out who leaked it, and then you know that that person doesn't can't be trusted with, again, the more boring but also more important secrets
Right.
that you have to give them. That's my hypothesis about a lot of this stuff, that you want things to be fantastic so that the boring things, uh you know, because no one's gonna say, hey, I guess what, um there are 50 boats, and that's it. That's what the story is. They're because people want to know how many boats there are, Ben. Oh, there are 50, they say. um and that's boring, nobody cares about it. But the idea that there's, an underground base in Antarctica that is being run jointly by Bigfoot and Elvis, you know, that's sexy, right? People want to talk about it. And so that's how
Dead
you find
sexy.
out where your leaks are. Yeah. That's my thought anyway. I don't know if it's true.
No,
Elvis shot
something.
JFK. I had a bumper sticker that said that, and I still like it.
There was a proliferation of alien movies. I think it was more than like normal. Back in probably, I don't know, like the 90s, early 2000s. My brother-in-law had this hypothesis that the reason there were so many like alien invasion movies is
Hmm.
because it was a plot by the government to get us used to the fact that there are aliens and like to be cool and not panic when it finally does happen. I tend to think that the government and the movie industry aren't that tightly connected, but I mean it was a
Argo.
fun theory.
Um, I Here's the thing. What he's talking about, that's a general. Is he a general conspiracy theorist?
Not
Um,
normally,
in
no.
other ways, because that is a standard thing. I forget exactly the term for it. I should know it. It's one of those things where, like, you can't remember your dad's middle name or whatever. John. Um, it's George's side. I don't know what Kevin's middle name is. I should know it, but I don't. Um, but the basic idea that, um, predictive programming, that's what it's called, predictive programming. So the idea is that you show people things in TV and movies first so that they get used to it. So when it happens in real life, they aren't freaked out about it.
Yeah.
An example that
Population control.
somebody, yeah. Um, so Dennis Haybert, as the president in 24,
Yeah.
right? The
Getting
example,
us
people
used
say
to
they're
a
getting
black
us
man
used
as
to
president.
having a black man as president, that sort of thing. So yeah, the idea that showing us aliens, then when there are aliens, we'll get used to it. But look at it this way also: alien invasion movies, right? Getting us used to fighting aliens.
Yeah.
That when you see an alien, you fight it. That is an interesting. Why would that be what they're doing? The same thing, like, Red Dawn versus Close Encounter of the Third kind of thing. Like show rural people fighting aliens, and why would you do that? But because if we're really trying to get people ready for alien invasions, this is the idea. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The idea was that they were doing that movie, and this is true. You can look it up. There were, conspiracy theories at the time that it came out that this was done by Steven Spielberg at the behest of the government so that we would be okay with, uh,
Right.
working with aliens.
I
And
tend
one of, oh, sorry, go
like
ahead.
well, I mean, I know that like sort of theory exists where the government asks filmmakers to do that kind of thing. I mean, famously, like people conspiracy theorists think Stanley Kubrick staged the moon landing, and so in practice though, I doubt that's a thing.
Oh, that the government has, people do. Well, this is the. I will tell you this. And this isn't a secret. I don't think this is a secret. I'm pretty sure it's not. But there are bases that have relationships with studios so that people can film on those bases for films and
Well,
stuff like
I
that.
mean, as far as like cooperating with movies, yeah, I mean the Top Gun
Yeah.
movies is just like Navy propaganda. You know, the I believe the Transformers movies got made. The Michael Bay Transformers movies got made because with the cooperation of the military, because it showed the military as strong and mighty. You know, but as to
Yeah.
whether or not there are also, you know, I can't remember which film it was, but you know, some filmmaker had to like not he wasn't able to film on a base or with actual military equipment because this filmmaker wasn't going to follow the dictates of the U.S. government in terms of how to portray the military in the film.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know,
Avatar. I'm kidding, but
but is I mean, are people in with briefcases going up to Steven Spielberg and saying, "Hey, we want you to make this movie on the hush, pretend it's your own, because we want the American, because we know it's going to be big, and we want the American public to think a certain way, and you are our message."
yeah,
I have a harder time believing that.
here's the thing that I would say. I feel as though there are we would agree that advertising doesn't necessarily the advertisers them how am I going to say this? Cheerios, right? Doesn't necessarily say we at Cheerios believe that we will be a force for social change, right? They aren't the ones that necessarily say this, but an ad agency would go to Cheerios and say, "Hey, you're Cheerios. We have a we there's an untapped market right now uh, that we think that you could address, that you could go to. Um, there are people, childless couples who are adopting children from overseas, and we think it would be a great thing for your commercial to have, the child from overseas has been adopted. They are, sitting down for breakfast at the first time, and the American uh, grandfather of this child, the new grandfather, it explains Cheerios to them, and he talks about how he likes them, and then the child looks at him and says, uh, I know what Cheerios are," and it's funny, but the point of the thing is that they didn't necessarily go and say we're going to get people used to seeing, you know, these adopted children so that they think about this sort of thing. The idea is that that is a side project, or a side product of the commercials. Commercials showing things as being normal because they're in commercials can help sway public opinion. And it's not necessarily that the government tells them that they need to do it, but by them doing it, it kind of
Yeah,
helps. And
it often backfires too.
advertisers, right? Well, this is the thing I was about to say. Advertisers did that when they thought that Hillary Clinton was going to become president. There were a whole bunch of there was a bunch of backlash against some of the Super Bowl ads that happened that year when Donald Trump won instead of Hillary Clinton, because the ads were already done. What are
Yeah.
they going to do? Not run the ads? So there were a whole bunch of ads at that time about the United States being a place where we're welcoming immigrants to the United States.
Yeah.
At the same time that and we're against the idea of building walls.
Yeah.
And if Hillary Clinton would have won, that wouldn't have been such a controversial statement. It would have been, hey, we're on the side of right here. But because Donald Trump won, a lot of people saw those commercials as being specifically anti the new president, and it caused some waves. You remember that
I don't
happening?
remember that specifically, but that doesn't. It's not surprising because that that side they're always looking for things to get
Yeah.
angry about. It's interesting you
Look up
mentioned
the
it's
podcast around that time. I think we talked about it.
it's interesting you mentioned
Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Cheerios too
Yep.
because Cheerios I think was the cereal that first showed like in wide wide distribution like national ad a same sex couple, right?
You know,
And
yep.
that was like a lot. Cheerios got a lot of hate for that from the Donald Trump type
I
supporters.
I think it was also Cheerios that had an interracial couple that had the same thing. So maybe I picked Cheerios because Cheerios has been doing some of the work,
Yeah.
in that area. But again, the basic idea is that yeah, we as the people of the United States do watch television and movies a lot, and
Too
those
much,
television and
some may
movies
say.
do try to instruct us in stuff. I do think that is that the fictions that we watch, even the reality TV show type, again, reality TV, not necessarily fiction, but fiction
Well, I
adjacent.
I think what I'm saying is, are they doing that at the behest of some darker purpose by the U.S. government?
I don't necessarily think it's a darker purpose. I think that it is propaganda, but propaganda, you know, um, it's one of those situations where there's wash your hands, right?
Yeah.
There's an episode of ER where there's a breakout of, I think it's hepatitis or something that happens on the ER floor, and it's because one of the people isn't washing their hands,
George
and
Clooney.
they say you have to wash your hands, and he's like, every time. It was the guy who played one of the bullies on Parker Lewis Can't Lose, or maybe he wasn't a bully. He was a big guy on Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I forget what the
Like the
guy's name
big
is.
guy from Parker Lewis Can't
Yeah,
Lose. I know who
yeah,
you're talking
that
about. I
guy.
don't know his name. Yeah, but I know who you're talking about.
He had a role on ER, and it was the same guy.
Oh man, remember
So
the heyday of Parker Lewis Can't Lose and trying to be
I
like a TV
do.
version of Ferris Bueller?
Oh, in fact, you know, there was a Ferris Bueller's Day Off reference in there. They had Ferris Bueller. Yeah, it's a POV shot of Ferris and somebody else watching Parker Lewis doing
Yeah,
his thing and going, I can't, you know, I got a lot to learn from this guy or whatever, or come on Ferris, let's go, something like
yeah.
that. So that was
Peak
kind of
'80s
interesting.
television.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, did you ever see Misfits of Science?
No.
Yeah, that's a TV show that I liked that didn't get a lot of airplay. I know Courtney Cox was in it. That's
Mm.
that's one way that you can find it, by just looking up Courtney Cox and then seeing Misfits
By
of
going
Science.
to my Courtney Cox library.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. um, and Bruce Springsteen concerts.
Oh, there's a whole Springsteen wing in my library.
I do like the idea that maybe 20 years from now there's a Bruce Springsteen concert, and he's playing, and he's in a chair, and then they use the automatic lift to get Courtney Cox onto the
And the concert is
stage with
still
him.
freaking 4 hours long.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, I liked the video of Hunter of Invisible Game. Uh, I thought that was it's crazy. It's a weird, like, post-apocalyptic world where Bruce Springsteen is still Bruce Springsteen, I think.
It's a Springsteen song?
But
I've
he's
not heard of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am a hunter of invisible game. Um, it is interesting. Bruce Springsteen was very much kind of a kind of a counterculture guy for a little bit, and then Born in the USA really got him into the mainstream. It's
Yeah.
really interesting, his earlier stuff. He's sort of a Tom Waitsy kind of guy.
It's also interesting how that song has been twisted by uh, political candidates to be like
Yeah,
sort of pro U.S., pro war. I think it's an anti-Vietnam song, if I'm remembering it correctly.
I think so. Yeah. Um, Hey, speaking of songs, have you listened to the new Ghost of Room album yet, Ben?
Oh my God, I haven't.
Oh, Lord.
I'll get on
I
that.
want to say Bones in the Mud, one of my most favorited songs, and it's got a really weird sample, but I
Bones
love
in
it.
the Mud.
Yeah, that's one of the songs. They're all good. Like I don't know. I can't explain it other than to say that um
Your Bones
that
in the
all
Mud.
the
I do
stuff.
have that song in my iTunes because Mike Doty put it out on his Patreon.
Oh, did you listen to it? Yeah. Yep.
I have a bunch of I have a bunch of Mike Doty stuff that I haven't listened to, just because like
Yeah.
whenever he releases a new song on his Patreon, I just put it into my iTunes, which automatically gets synced to my phone here. So
Yeah.
I'll be walking. It's not unusual for me to be walking to work and listening to like a shuffle of every song on my phone and just hearing
Yeah.
two or three just random Doty songs that I've never heard before. Some of them are better than others, I'll admit. Some of
Yeah.
them don't pass the smell test, but
Well, I gotta say, if you're doing Patreon content, it's probably worth it. Um, to do everything you can just to keep on giving the people their stuff.
yeah, I don't know. I think with Mike Doty at least, I think a lot of his fans kind of cut him some slack if he misses a week. I think it's a weekly thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he's got the fan base. Again, I don't know, but maybe I
I
doubt
mean,
he's got the fan base where if he misses a week, someone's gonna be like, "I want my $5 back."
well, the thing that's kind of interesting is that I am a member of the I was a member of Unprepared Casters at their $15 a month tier, and I've dropped it down to
Yeah,
$2 a month because I just can't cotton it. And what I dropped it altogether, I was like, I'm not, because it was like I said, it was sort of a when I here's what I've learned. When I am running a D&D campaign myself, listening to other people play D&D, if they aren't the specific people that I really want to listen to because I find them, funny in other areas,
yeah,
it's tough because I'm just thinking about my own game and how I would run it and all that sort of thing. So so I dropped them all together, but then they scrapped an entire arc that they had done because it was done in a game system that one of the people who who wrote the game system uh, was
turned
a
out to be a
bad
pedophile.
guy. Yeah, or well, it's not that, but something similar.
Yeah,
Um, and so they just scrapped it and they said we're not doing this arc. And
yeah,
so I rejoined at the $2 level and I wrote to them. I said, look, I stopped. I can't really do this, but I'm doing this anyway because I believe in you guys and what you did. And part of the reason I did that was, of course, because I told them that I was dropping, or I didn't tell them I was dropping. I just dropped
yeah.
at the exact same time, and I didn't want them to think that I dropped because they scrapped their. So
I support this really terrible person. Therefore, I'm dropping you as a Patreon
you're
member.
right, that I didn't want them to think that of it. Strangers to think that about me.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, so it's good though. It's a good album. I've still been listening to it. It really does have what I like about Mike Dowdy
Yeah.
in there. He's doing his vocal stuff, the fast, singing stuff like that, as well
Yeah.
as it's got the hooks.
I've been listening to one album kind of like on repeat for the last few weeks.
What is it?
It's a band from Austin called Black Joe Lewis and the Honey Bears. Have you heard of these guys?
No, I haven't.
The album, I believe the name of the album is "Tell 'Em What Your Name Is," and it came out in 2009. And I looked up some of their more recent stuff, and their sound has somewhat changed. But their first album is very much like the Meters meets the Bar-Kays with a little bit of like Screamin' Jay Hawkins thrown in,
Oh
which
wow,
is
okay.
like driving guitar, funky beats, horn section, and the lead singer is I mean at this first album he's probably like even in his early 20s, right? This kid, but he's got a very
Yeah.
old like I don't know, I want to like Stevie Wonder, Screaming Jay Hawkins kind of vibe. And
Wow, okay.
it's really good. Black
Um,
Joe Lewis and the Honey Bears, look him up.
yeah. There's another thing that I'm trying to think of of the guy's first name, and I'm having a real trouble with it. His last name is Mercury, and it's not Freddie.
Because that's what I was thinking.
Um, could you do me a favor? I know that we're breaking the rules here, but could you look up the album Electric Black Man?
Electric Black Man by Eric Mercury.
Eric Mercury. Yeah. I was gonna say Eric, but um and he does a version of the Hurdy Gurdy Man by Donovan on that album that's just amazing. And so I
Oh,
bought
I
the
know
album.
you love your covers.
I bought the whole album, Ben, and it's worth it.
The
He was
whole
he's
album.
great. He's Canadian, that Eric Mercury, and yeah, it's just his voice is incredible. Would recommend for sure.
Right on.
So yeah, music and all that. Let's see. Is there any other news that we haven't covered?
Nah, the biggest the biggest news that I've been seeing is just the my old high school pal causing an international disturbance.
And
Um,
the what
there
now we have to say, just in case, did we talk about that at last week's?
last week, yeah.
Okay. One thing, if people were confused, I just want to make sure your high school friend wasn't the person that hit the person. Your
Correct.
high school friend was the person joking about the person who
Joking
got
about it
hit.
afterwards, yeah. There is
That
one
is
news. There is one news thing. Maybe this will be another Paul gonna guess the news.
brought to you by
Um,
Sun-Made Apricots. Paul gonna
Brought
guess
to you
the
by
news.
Sunmade and Vita Cocoa Coconut Water, which has been
Oh
on
yeah,
frame the entire time.
and
Uh, a,
it was yeah, go ahead.
a certain Republican senator has decided to retire at the end of this term. Do you know who it is?
I'm gonna make a guess of who it is. I don't know if it's true or not. Is it Mitch McConnell?
It is not Mitch McConnell.
Okay. I'm
But
all
the
right.
first
Who
name
was it?
does start with an M, though. It is Mitt Romney.
Oh wow, okay.
Mitt Romney actually came out and said it is time for the boomers to get out of politics, and so he's leading by example and not seeking re-election. I know a lot of my lefty friends are upset at Nancy Pelosi for announcing her bid to run for re-election. Of course,
Hmm.
as you know, Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein are octogenarians, still deciding what our rules are. But the biggest news coming out of the whole Mitt Romney issue is that he has written a tell-all from the Senate, which will be released soon.
Wow.
And a lot of Republican senators are kind of shaking in their boots right now because behind closed doors, they speak the truth about what they think about our former president,
Oh boy, oh
and they think
boy.
it's gonna be in this book.
And when's his book gonna come out?
In the next few months, I think.
Oh wow. Well, it's the kind of book that you quit your job over.
Uh,
um, well, here's the thing. I really think that Mitt Romney is going to do better outside of politics than he did in them, and he did pretty well
well,
in them.
a lot of people are kind of upset, not upset because that he's retiring, but he does sort of represent the last of the centrist Republicans, of the like moderate
Mm.
Republicans, and what people are worried about is that the person that's going to vacate a seat is just going to be another radical right wing idiot.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say, and we talked about this before, that if I were going to vote for a Republican, if I had to, it would have been John Huntsman. And I don't know how
Who was that?
good or bad he is. He is somebody who is running. I think he was running at the same time. I think he was running in the 2016 election, I want to say. Um, but it might have been the election before that. It might have been the 2008 election. Um, but the reason that I I said I would vote for this guy if I had to vote for anyone is because Captain Beefheart was one of his favorite bands,
So he
and
can't be
and
all
I don't
bad.
care, I don't care what your politics are, right? If you are willing to go on record saying that Captain Beefheart is one of your favorite bands, you're weird.
Yeah.
And being
And weird
being a
is good.
weird being a weird right wing guy is an interesting place to be at. I don't know.
In
But
our
anyway, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
in our last 5 minutes, do you wanna let's do this week in Goody Lawrence?
Oh
Because
yeah, we haven't done
I
that in a while.
we've talked about Paul and Ben effing rock because I showed you that video. The next one was when we played at the Extreme Theater League. I think we did. Yeah, we did talk about that. That
Yeah,
wasn't at Spin the Bottle. Did we talk about what we did on January 6th, 2006, which is oh yeah, we did. Notorious Big Tool
Storm the
Madonna
Capitol. Wait. Oh
and
yeah, that's right.
I'm on Fire by our new band Notorious Big Tool Madonna.
I think it was Notorious Big Tool Madonna. I think that
Notorious, yeah.
and I love it. And again, if you want to know why Notorious Big Tool Madonna is such a great name for a band, think about it on the marquee at a venue.
Yeah. The next one is February 3rd, 2006, and it is This Day in History. Paul and Ben determine what happened on this day in history. I have no recollection of this performance. I have
I
nothing
do
on the
not.
website.
It's it smells as though there is something that we were asked to do by Brett,
Yeah.
but maybe not. What do we know anything more? You said there's nothing on the website.
There's nothing on the website. If I went to my folder of all my GudeLaurance stuff, I might have a script, but I don't. It's not on the website,
All right.
so
So
I
this is
don't know
what we're
what it
gonna have to do,
is.
Ben. What was it? February what?
February 3rd, 2006.
Okay, we've got time. Start reading things. Look it up. This day in history, and see if it jogs our memory. Ben's gonna pull up this day in history.
Let's see. What happened on February 3rd, 2006? Bill Nye, the Science Guy, weds author oboist Blair Tyndall
What?
at Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles.
No. Now we're not looking at what happened in 2006. We're looking at what happened prior to 2006,
Uh,
because it would have been what we would have talked about.
let's go. This day in history, February 3rd. All right, there's a whole. What happened on February 3rd? The 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is ratified. On this day in 1870, the 15th Amendment to the Constitution of the U.S. was ratified, guaranteeing the right to vote regardless of race and intending to ensure, with the 14th Amendment, the civil rights of former slaves. Seems like an
Okay,
important one.
it is an important one, not the one we talked about though.
No.
I don't think.
In 2005, American lawyer and Judge Alberto Gonzalez was sworn in as the Attorney General of the U.S., becoming the first Hispanic to occupy the post.
Nope.
American rock and roll singer Buddy Holly was killed in a plane crash at age 22.
That is closer to something we might have mentioned, but I don't think that was it.
Um, in a personal meeting with Confederate representatives, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln offered liberal pardons in exchange for the South's quitting the Civil War, with reunion as a precondition of peace, an offer that was rejected. Probably not.
Nope.
In 1468, German craftsman, inventor, and printer Johannes Gutenberg, whose printing press was considered a history-changing invention, died in Mainz.
No, still not hitting
Nothing
it for me.
Yeah, Massachusetts issued the first paper money in the American colonies. American newspaper editor Horace Greeley, known as one of the most persuasive anti-slavery voices in the antebellum North, was born in Amherst. Avant-garde American writer Gertrude Stein, whose Paris home was a salon for the leading artists and writers of the period between World Wars I and II, was born, and this is 1874. Not yet involved in World War I, the U.S. broke off diplomatic relations with Germany after the Germans announced their intentions to practice unrestricted submarine warfare. None of this is ringing a bell. I bet you anything we made up every single thing we talked about.
Maybe so. Can you find out and we'll talk about it next time?
That requires homework, Paul Goody. If I can find these notebooks, all of my old performance notebooks are just buried in my closet. So if I
gotcha.
Get the impulse to dig out and find 2006,
you don't have to. Just if you end up doing it, that would be cool.
I'm wondering, it's possible we did exchange scripts via email back then. Maybe I'll be able to find something in my email from 2006.
Yeah. Maybe so. The one last thing I do want to mention is the great idea where a guy comes back from time traveling and says, "We did it. We finally killed Archduke Ferdinand." And they're like, "What about Hitler? What about who?"
Yeah.
And the idea that the murder of Archduke Ferdinand started World War I, which then led to World War II. I do like the idea that his assassination was thought of as a good thing by the time travelers who messed up this timeline. And I know I said travelers weird. All right.
Hey,
so
look at the time.
Are we, because we had a little bit of time, do we want to pad at all, or do you think we're good to end here?
I think we're good. I think,
all right.
I think for the good of the order, we should end.
Okay. For the good of the order, Ben. All right. Well, Ben, thank you very much for talking to me. I always enjoy talking to you and have a pleasant time. You will have been back a week at least.
By the time this airs, I will still be gone. I'll be back on Wednesday, and then the day after that, we record again.
Oh, well, in that case, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for anyone who's listening to this on the day that it was released.
Indeed.
Time is weird.
Yeah.
Shout out to the call-in talk show, the pre-taped call-in talk show.
The pre-taped call-in talk show.
One of Ben and I's favorite sketches from Mr. Show.
Paul Goody, I pray that you keep it wrong.
Ben, for the love of myself and my family and everyone that you know and love, please keep it wrong. And I will see you next time.
I'll do so, and I'll see you later.
Talk to you later. Room tone.